What up, my fellow challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future if it's happening in the Challenge universe. We are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated challenge historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very much for being here with me on, well, it's Saturday, my time. I don't know that I'll be releasing this today or even really tomorrow. We will see. You definitely by Monday, some of you are listening to this, or some other day well into the future. Who knows? But whatever day it is for you, whatever time it is from you, wherever you may be, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for popping in to discuss something that ended mercifully quite a while ago. We are here to finally do our season recap and awards of Battle of the Eras and mix in with that a bit of a state of the challenge up top. This was postponed once when the season actually ended. We wanted to give the two reunion specials, and we were going to film it right after that. But then I ended up needing to move it a day or two. And after that, something happened. We'll get into it here shortly. And I decided a bunch of thoughts changed. I wanted to push it off even further. And now I feel like I'm ready to discuss it, to discuss the state of the challenge and how that relates to my overall feelings, putting Battle of the Eras to bed and moving on from it. So we're here to do that today. The agenda for this, we are going to start first segment with the state of the challenge. This is a little bit of its own thing, but it does relate to then how I feel about the season. So if you're listening on audio, Spotify, Apple, what have you, this is all going to be one thing. If you are watching this on YouTube, there is a chance that this is two separate videos, or that you're not even seeing this introduction part and it's two separate videos without any of this introduction. We will see, but we're starting with the state of the challenge. We'll see. That might be super quick. It might take 10 minutes. We will see how that goes. And then after that, I'm going to run through a quick list of things from Battle of the Eras season 40 that I liked, that I would have changed, that I think worked out in their favor, or things that I flat out did not think worked. And then third, we will do our awards. We've got Best Quote, Dan Renzi, Best Elimination, Best Moment, and of course, Season MVP. And then finally, we will end with the season grade, which, is one of the tougher ones I've ever had to give. I've given every season at this point a grade. I have graded some seasons many times over, depending if they've been a part of different rewatch series and things of that nature. But I think at this point, I have given every single season a grade. Given that pre-season 40, I did the 39 seasons in 39 days, which only made it through 35 of the seasons, but all 35 of them got a grade or an updated grade. And every season since then, I have been covering on the podcast and graded at the end of said season, with the single exception. I'm just realizing Double Agents. Double Agents is the only single one, because I stopped with Total Madness, I think, on the recaps, and then I started covering on the podcast here with All Stars and Spies, Lies, and Allies. So one single Double Agents, the only one I guess technically I have not given a grade. We'll go ahead and say it right now. B- C+, B- C+, somewhere in there. Got to rewatch it to find out. So there you go. We're starting off hot. We're already grading other seasons, but now we'll dive in again. First things first, I want to talk state of the challenge as it relates to Battle of the Eras and my kind of experience coming out of Battle of the Eras and into All Stars 5. Both of those shows will be touched on in this, and then we will go into likes, would have changed, thought didn't work, awards, season grade, and that will be that. Thanks as always. Hit the subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple, hitting those follows, hitting the plus signs anywhere, leaving comments on any of those sites, sharing them, all of those things really, they've always helped in the different algorithms, and those things are only becoming more and more critical to actually getting this in front of more people. So if you are coming back and liking what you hear or watch every single time, you might as well help me get it out to more people who may feel the same. So thanks as always for being here. Love you, appreciate you. Let's dive in. State of the Challenge, February 1st, 2025. All Stars 5 one weekend. Battle of the Eras in the books. Where are we? Let's go. The reason that this Battle of the Eras season recap was delayed the first time was because of life stuff, whatever. But then it was only meant to be delayed a couple of days. And in those couple of days, something happened that caused me to think, this is making me feel a lot differently. And I actually had kind of an outline already made for Battle of the Eras, and I just completely redid it after this. And ended up waiting to record because I was kind of in my feelings about how I felt about the challenge, where the challenge was going. I wanted to watch the All Stars 5 premiere before recording this. And the thing that happened was I randomly ended up watching the first 3 episodes of Dirty 30. And I say randomly because I watched the challenge flagship seasons via, I have YouTube TV. And I have YouTube TV to watch the challenge and to watch sports. I do not sit down and like turn it on. I mean, it's cable for those that aren't familiar. It's like having a cable package of sorts. And so you can flip through the channels, it's live TV, whatever's on. And I, of course, get MTV so I can watch flagship, and I get MTV2 in that. But I'm just not someone that sits down and watches TV very often. Again, I have this and I pay all the money to have it just to watch these specific sporting events I want and to watch the challenge, which so I'm kind of paying a lot of money to watch the challenge if you really think about it. But randomly, I did have something that I was watching in a movie I was trying to finish, and I had made some lunch. And I sat down to finish. I had like 15 minutes left of this movie I had been watching. And so I finished it and I was still eating. So I was just like, whatever. Like for one of the very rare times, I just threw on YouTube TV thinking like it was a weekend. I was like, there'll be a sport, something on that I can watch for another 5 to 10 minutes while I'm sitting and chilling here. And I flipped through, and on MTV2 was the challenge Dirty 30 episode 1. It was 5 minutes in. And I was like, I can't believe I forgot that I have this at my disposal. And I also didn't totally realize that MTV2 plays like pretty big marathons of the challenge and some of its other shows. It's not just ridiculousness every hour like MTV proper is. And so I started watching with the expectation of watching like 5 minutes. And that turned into, I watched the full first episode, and that turned into click record and keep recording the rest of it, even though you can watch season 30 on Paramount Plus, I'm sure, and other places. And went back that night and ended up watching episodes 2 and 3 as well. So I watched the first 3 episodes of Dirty 30. And the reason I got so into it was because it was really good. It was comparatively so much better, honestly, than the Battle of the Eras season that we just watched. And this was after having watched or a couple days before watching All Stars 5, and then All Stars 5, which we'll get to in a minute, confirmed and felt much more like Dirty 30 than it did Battle of the Eras. And the reason it was so good is, let me refresh you just a random smattering of things that happened, honestly, in the first 2 episodes. I think all of this happens in the first 2 episodes of Dirty 30. There is the biggest storyline in the first 2 episodes is that Corey is there on his, I believe, 4th season with 3 different women who he has hooked up with on the show, all of which are open to hooking up with him again if they're the only one, but also talking shit about him. And there's things like Anissa telling Kayla and Camilla that she was the first to ride that D, so she's no whore. I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially the line said across the kitchen. But there's Corey with Camilla, Kayla, and Anissa in the same house, and everyone's talking about it, and everyone's poking fun. And Corey and Camilla are down on the beach, sneaking back in, claiming they didn't hook up, and it's impacting the game, and it's getting him thrown into the first elimination, and it's a mess. And it's a virtuoso performance from Corey, really. And along with that, there's CT is coming in late I feel horrible. I forget her name. She ends up going home first, but the female who was the partner with the guy that quit on X's 2 or Rivals 3, one of the ones. And she's like had potential for sure. I forget her name, but they come in late. There was the whole, are they even going to be allowed into the country? And that was a kind of a fun moment. Shane and Simone have a huge fight where there is clawed. Shane's face gets clawed. Simone possibly got punched or slapped to start it. She breaks a bottle and is waving it around in the Redemption House, double DQ. That all goes down. Everyone, the whole time, every single scene that isn't at a daily challenge or an elimination, everyone is in their bathing suits. Everyone is by the pool 100% of the time, which is just way better. There's a clear hierarchy of in the first couple episodes, like balanced storylines of There are new people trying to make a name for themselves. The Corys, Nelsons, Amandas, Ashleys, Kayla, Tony, Brittany, Devin, Tori, all on their first, second, third, fourth, I guess, for Corey, I think at this point, but first, second, third-ish season, new budding stars making a name for themselves. There's kind of like the mid-level vets that are on like 4, 5, 6 range of like the Camillas, Jordans, Karas, Leroy, Jemmies, like bona fide great cast members, great characters, right in their prime, in their run here. And then there's some super vets, legends, an OG comeback. It's like Bananas and CT are there, but they're like we've been doing this forever. Super duper vets. We're only here because we've won a bunch of times, and this is a big, famous season. Derek, Veronica, Darrell are back. Anissa is still there. She's more in the Bananas CT category, just without the wins, but similar of like, we've been doing this forever. And, just this is the 30th season. We need some of these people. It was this amazing mix. It had so much promise for the future because most of the focus, most of the entertainment was coming from that first group: Corey, Nelson, Amanda, Ashley, Kayla, Tony, Brittany, Devin, Tori, and the like. And it just made for I was just enthralled. I was like, this is so good. It's messy. It's random. It's fun. The Redemption House is a good time. There's so many characters. There's so many different kind of allegiances here, and just the cast is so good. And there's a lot of promise of the future of the show is in good hands, and we're still interested in how some of these older characters interact with these new batches of people. And it's all so good. And so that was like getting me feeling a certain way. And then All Stars 5 premieres. I was like, I'm going to wait and watch All Stars 5 because I think All Stars 5 felt like, like this has a chance to be the best challenge season in a long time. And one episode in, I certainly feel that way. It's amazing. It feels like the challenge from a half decade ago. And I think it's going to be the best season since War of the Worlds 2. Not counting Challenge Australia, which I will still ride so hard for, is unbelievable and is a great. It won't really come up anywhere else in this, but there's a part of me that wants them to do a challenge season with 100% rookies, no one we have any relationship to at all, whether they're from another reality show or not. And the Challenge Australia is a reason for that. I know it completely flopped in Australia, but here in the States, anyone I have ever seen that has watched it, maybe they don't feel as highly as I do, but is like, that's a really good, entertaining season of the challenge. And I didn't know who any of those people were before it. So that to the side, I think All Stars 5, it has the potential. And so far, one episode in, I feel like it is going to be the best season since War of the Worlds 2 of any kind, of any format. It's a format that we know and we love. It's a messy cast where there are a couple standout like athlete type of people, but it's not full of people who are just out there training for the show, coming into the show, doing whatever it takes, stay in the background, low-key game. Like, I just want to make the final. I don't really care what the TV show is here. I don't really care what the relationships are. Like, I am here to play the game, and I train for the game, and I do everything that is most smart for the game. No, this is a group of messy reality TV cast members that are like, would love to win, would love to be there a while, but want to be having fun and are going to be talking shit and aren't going to take any shit if they're not having fun. And if someone else is the reason they're not having fun or is saying anything about them, the whole thing. Okay. It's just messy and it's good. And it's random. This is a cast that like, it's a bunch of people from a bunch of different spots, a bunch of different moments for the show kind of thrown together, and everyone has a connection or two. Obviously with their partner, they have a connection, but like, this isn't an obvious, hey, there's this big alliance and they'll probably be up against these, whatever. Like we have no idea where the friendships will form, where the alliances are going to be, anything. So I think it's going to be really, really good. And I know, and if you listen to my episode 1 recap of Rivals, I know why they did this, or I don't know. I've never confirmed with anyone. I don't talk to anyone in production or anything, but it makes sense to me that they waited to use Rivals or a theme at all for All Stars for this very moment, and Rivals ever again for this moment. And they didn't call someone like an Ashley in particular, and maybe a couple others, for Battle of the Eras and saved them to be, we need some stars on All Stars 5, because they needed to do something to get people interested again post season 40. We have this huge thing. I'm sure maybe they think it went amazing. they definitely went into it thinking like this season's going to be the biggest and best in a long, long time. It's season 40. It's this huge thing. We're blowing it out, whatever. So when you're planning that, you're also planning. So then we've got to get people like the season after the big monumental season is a tough call. And so you save your best format and some of your best cast members. And I get it. That all makes sense. And I agree with it. And I think they should have done it. What I think they should have done differently, though, is it shouldn't have started the very next week. We shouldn't have went straight into airing this season. It should have had wildly better promotion. Give us a month break. We just watched a 22 episode season. That is 5.5 months. That is almost half of a year. That is almost a half of the year that show was airing. That is some Big Brother numbers over there, okay? 22 episodes when you count the launch special, which is a full-blown episode, and the 2 reunion episodes. Give us a break. Take a month off. Take 6 weeks off. Take 8 weeks off. Take 3 months off. Who knows? Start this thing in March or April and drop it and say in advance, 12 episodes, 90 minutes. This thing rules. Give us 6 weeks of heavy promotion. Get all these people out there on social media. Get the fan base already in a 1 week time span in this quick turnaround is fired up for this season. I know the initial rating wasn't great because a lot of folks don't pay for something like YouTube TV like I do to be able to watch just the one show on MTV that they want to watch. So it shouldn't have been the start of the next week. It should have had way better promo, and it should be available on Paramount Plus next day, maybe like on the Saturday or the next Monday or whatever, or a week later, but like in somewhere between 1 and 7 days later should be up on Paramount Plus for those people that want to pay for one $15 streaming subscription versus whatever cable package of any kind or whatever streamer they have to get MTV and to be able to watch live. Those things all should be been done differently. And that brings us then back to Battle of the Eras and the show in general. Then the number one problem the show kind of has moving forward, and the thing that really stood out, and yes, the concept of Battle of the Eras was going to be different than what the concept of Dirty 30 was, where they didn't actually break it out and like have evenly distributed amount of cast members from different points of the show. I get it. But it does, and I ride for people that are on that Era 4 team and are from Era 4 of the challenge in general, a lot more than most. A lot more than most, I would say. But you could still feel that difference of when I watched those couple episodes of Dirty 30, 2 things really, really stood out. And one was that like the promise of the future, like look at all these young people who are the stars of this and who are fascinating and great cast members and making this such a fun watch a couple episodes in. And that feeling wasn't necessarily there with a Battle of the Eras. And then the second part was along with that, almost all of the same people were the same people 10 seasons later. And in reality, 15 seasons later, 16, 17 seasons later, when you count all the flagships, the USA 1 and 2s, the All-Stars, 15 plus seasons later of this show from Dirty 30 to Battle of the Eras. And it's still like, hey, you know what's cool? Bananas and CT and Anissa and Derek and are here. And Jordan is the one making the name for himself. And Corey is still here. And Amanda is still like the best, new, like quote, like not new at all, but like is still like, it's all the same people. It's all the same people, just with another 5 to 10 seasons each. In all of their storylines being very, very played through, and the average age of the cast being what has to be 6, 7, 8 years older, like the average age, because it's basically all the same people 6, 7, 8 years later. Like it's almost all of the same people. And so the number one problem is casting. And part of that isn't just the casting, but it is us, the audience, and our willingness to learn about new people, get interested in them. I've talked about this before. I will talk about it again here with seasons like Double Agents or Spies, Lies, and Allies, or much more recently, B-Fank, Battle for a New Champion, which I really liked, especially compared to what it seemed like everyone else's feelings, or the consensus feelings. I wasn't the only one that really liked it by any means, but there wasn't many of us compared to that many people who were just shitting on it and making fun of it. And that is as another extra little tangent on top of this tangent, goes for the cast too, that older cast members that don't do any favors to the franchise that they supposedly love and owe so much to, when they're part of the ones just shitting on and crapping on all of the newer people, and like, they can't do it, they need us, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. Like, we love you, we want to see more of you, but like, we also need a future of this show. And the production side, they screwed it up when they ditched all the great UK folks from 30 to 35, and suddenly like almost all of them were gone. When it was like, look, you got an incredible, you did it. You got through there's no more Real World. We've gotten through everyone that's basically ever been on Are You the One, and we need someone new. And we brought all these folks from the UK, and it worked. The hit rate was amazing in those seasons, and then a bunch of them just never got calls back. They could have done a better job with the international casting on Double Agents and Spies, Lies, and Allies and Ride or Dies, where it was like, I get the idea, I guess, but it didn't work at all. And it was more than, again, me wanting myself in the whole audience in general to be more open to, you don't know this person, they're from some show you've never watched or heard of. That's fine. That doesn't mean they might not be an amazing cast member. Give them a shot, and maybe we build up some new stories and some new stars and some new people. I don't think they picked super great on those 3 seasons in particular, where they're bringing folks from all over. And I don't think they picked great as far as which ones they then invited back for a second or third time of those groups from Double Agent, Spies, Lies, and Allies, and Ride or Dies. We could have been more interested and open to like being interested in them as an audience, but they definitely could have picked a lot better from production's standpoint. And then instead of doing USA seasons, which were fine and good, mostly good, we could have just started pulling the quality Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, Love Island people into the challenge flagship. There wouldn't have had any. MTV's the only one that pulls the chicanery of like, you have to go through us and Buena Murray to like be allowed on the other shows. CBS doesn't do that as much. And all those shows, like, those people would have been available, it seems like, and they had a few of them come over, but they're like, I don't know. There was a switch that maybe for behind the scenes reasons just never feels like it could happen. But like, we'd bring a couple Big Brother players, 1 or 2 Survivor players, whatever. And even if they worked out really well as cast members on the flagship, there wasn't more of them. And in a world where there wasn't Road Rules, of course, there wasn't Real World, and now there wasn't even Are You the One, I feel like there could have just been the switch a while ago of just like Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race. That's it. That's our new feeder system. You're on one of the competition shows on CBS, and then you come into our competition show, and we're the thing that like people want to graduate into, that has people that you can do over and over and over. Those shows you don't get to do over and over and over. And that could have just been it, period, end of story. But they didn't do that either. And so, for looking back, Dirty 30 through War of the Worlds 2, I stand by it. The best ever run in challenge history is earlier than that. Rivals 1 through Free Agents is just unreal. And you can even do fresh meat through Free Agents and like extend that back with 2 more seasons. That run is untouchable. It is just so unbelievably perfect. But that doesn't mean that because there was the 1A plus 5, 6, 7 season run once, that there hasn't been other more recent A plus, not A plus, but A runs of great challenge content. And Dirty 30 through War of the Worlds 2 is 5 straight seasons that are very good and really rewatchable and really fun and really entertaining. And it was because we had the last Road Rulers and the new Are You the One cast members who were a great new generation to add. And then we added that great new kind of UK generation with a really good hit rate. And then suddenly it was just kind of the newest, those new UK folks, a bunch of them that stopped getting calls. And we're just going to take this last group and we're just going to have them keep doing seasons. And we're going to keep inviting Anissa, Bananas, CT, and Wes to do the seasons every season. And it's just going to be the same group. And now 10 seasons after Dirty 30, 4 Battle of the Eras, again, 15 seasons really, or 16, whatever it is. it felt like we were in the same place, but worse because it's this much later and we like need some new people and some new stories and some new things to be interested in. And so in closing, because this is like unbelievably long, um, is the show just meant for the 2 to 300,000 people that watch every week that are between 30 and 45 years old, older millennials, if you will, like myself, that have been watching forever and they know, hey, we can milk this, like the network's fine with 300 to 400,000 people watching live. That's fine. That's good. They'll pay. Everyone makes the money they need to make. We can keep doing this. We can milk this for another half dozen seasons. Let it fizzle out of existence. If so, then great. Then let Bananas and Anissa and Kara and CT and Nani and not retired Leroy and now Devin and Tori and Corey and that group, let them just do a bunch of the seasons more. Let it be just retreads over and over and over with barely any new people, barely any new storylines, barely any storylines to really mine with these folks who we know and love. I want to say again, love to death, but we've just watched over and over and over and over and over. And there isn't anything really to tell with them. And we can do that for another 4 or 5 seasons. And this thing will be extinct. And maybe All Stars will go back to like really old folks and we can do a couple more seasons of that and it'll be extinct. But if it's not just meant to be, let's milk those couple 100,000 of us millennials that grew up on this thing for as many seasons as you can, then lock in on casting, make season 41 and 42, 30 people in the cast. We need the best 6 rookies you can find anywhere in reality television. We need 10 to 12 people that are in their second, third, or fourth at most season. And then you can have, your 10 or 12 older folks, maybe less than that. If there's 30 people in the cast, 8 rookies and 14 second, third, or fourth season, younger in challenge years. I know most of these people now in the reality TV landscape is the challenge isn't the only one that no longer has 24-year-olds really on it. But do that for 41, do that for 42, build out some new stories, build out some new pairings, build out some new stars. I'm not sure what the show wants to be. I do think a lot of this has to do for the last behind the scenes kind of thing that I don't know, again, of course, but I imagine being someone who looks at and kind of studies the actual landscape of media and the business side of it. I think this has a lot to do with Buna Murray, the folks at MTV, the folks at Paramount, that they don't know, like they deal with the fact that they don't know what the next year or 2 years looks like for their networks and for their streamers and for where they're going to be putting product and who will buy it and where any of it. The whole landscape is just, it was blown up a while ago and it's still figuring out where things are. And there is no stability and there is no long-term ability to think long-term because of the circumstances of the industry. And so I get it that it then makes sense if we wrap around everything I've been talking about here of like, it seems like every season or two, they're just thinking short-term. They're just thinking short-term and they're not thinking long-term anymore. But as much as there will never be anything like The Challenge or reality TV in general, pre-social media or even like early social media, there could still be really amazing version of The Challenge for a very long time to come. And we could be super hyped 6 years from now when the Challenge 50, which in reality is like the Challenge 70, will be, but the flagship 50 is going to air and everyone's unbelievably excited and the audience is as big as it's ever been and everyone is as hyped as it's ever been. We can be in that place for Challenge 50. They just got to start believing in that being possible, being willing to plan for that regardless of what the industry is. And we, the fans, have to have a little bit of grace with them if they do say, we're going to go for that. All right, so now that we're nearly 30 minutes into this podcast, thanks for being here. Let's talk about Battle of the Eras itself. And no, as much as that whole thing was just me being like, man, there's a lot of this other stuff that's a lot better than this big important season that was supposed to be good. This whole thing isn't going to be this season sucked and that's all we're saying. We're going to talk about things we liked. We're going to hand out awards that's talking about good things. And then we are going to give a grade of the season. And spoiler alert, it's not going to be like an A+, okay? It's not. But this is not going to be some all negative podcast by any means. We're going to start now. Things I liked, things that worked out, things that didn't work out, things I would have changed, and yes, some things that absolutely didn't work. They shouldn't have done. So let's go through that list, kind of positive to negative, if you will. Things I liked, just high level things. And a lot of this is like production type decisions or higher level decisions. It's not like specific moments or quotes or anything. We'll talk about that type of stuff in the awards. Things I liked. I really loved that they went and they did 40 cast members. I still look back and applaud, like you went for it and you got 40 people. That's amazing. And ultimately that they did about as good as we could have ever hoped they did in casting those 40 people. I know everyone's fan cast is way better and is completely unrealistic with the Corals and Landons of the world. And like, oh, Theo Vaughn would do it and the Miz would, none of that stuff is realistic. Okay. But 40 cast members was amazing. And the fact that they did as well in casting that 40 and making it really feel monumental, given who in the cast it was, really, really great. Loved that. The daily challenges across the board, I thought they did a really good job with. I was pretty happy with the dailies for the most part. There's one part of it that I didn't love that we'll kind of touch on and separate out here in a moment. The eliminations, same thing. Thought across the board, they designed a lot of really cool eliminations. They did use, the big famous ones right off the start. And so that was when it's a 20 episode season, it was a little tough to be like, oh, we already did that though in like the second episode. But regardless, the eliminations across the board, I thought were good to great. And then the biggest thing, the thing I loved the most about this season, the thing I appreciate the most that production did, there was only one single format change, and it was the obvious one, which is they went from the teams to the individuals, and that's good by me. That is a fantastic format. I applaud them for not making it crazy. The karma vote twist be damned. I guess that is the one big twist they did, but this wasn't some season where, things changed every other episode. People were changing teams or partners every episode, or it was confusing. We didn't always know there's these advantages, there's these disadvantages, none of that. It was very straightforward and pretty simple as far as how the targets worked, and you're in teams. And at some point you all would have guessed it. We're going to individuals. We're keeping the targets, and it all worked really, really great. So those were some things I liked or loved. Here's a couple things that worked out in their favor. After the opening eliminations, which I do think didn't work out for them as far as who got eliminated right at the start, and who was lost. I think, that if they could have behind the scenes, there would be kind of a pecking order of like, okay, we know we got to lose. There's going to be 8 people that are immediately gone. Who would we want to lose from each team? I think it actually didn't work out as far as who went home in that first batch of 8. After that, though, we had a long run where basically every recap episode I was discussing, like, as far as the 2 people that went into elimination are concerned, the one that won was the better for the show, meaning the winner of each elimination in that elimination was like, well, for the show's sake and for whatever stories we got going and entertainment value and everything else, we pretty much always had the person that would help the show out be the one winning the eliminations versus losing the eliminations. So I thought that actually worked out really well. That's one thing that isn't controllable by production, as much as you all want to say it is controllable. It's not, but that worked out really in there. It didn't work out in the initial 8. It worked out pretty well the rest of the season. And then the women who made it to the end in the final, being as stacked as it was, really worked out for them and really kept interest in a season that dragged and got a little boring. The thing that you'll hear throughout the rest of this podcast that did stand out is like, for once, and it doesn't always happen, I was really interested in just the who's going to win on the women's side. And like a lot of seasons, I'm always interested. I want to know who wins, of course, but it isn't usually like, there's a lot of seasons where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll find out at the end and that'll be interesting. But I'm not like locked into that much. And this one, I was like really the back half of the season, like kind of fascinated with like, who's going to end up winning this on the women's side. The men's side, I kind of knew who I was like, if he's never going to go into elimination, I know who's going to win this. And that played out. So the women who made it to the end and making it as compelling of a competition as it was, definitely worked out in their favor. One big thing that did not work out, that wasn't anything they did, Some things are going to work out. Some things are not going to work out. This is a thing that did not work out for them. Era 1 getting decimated. If they could have reversed this and had Era 1 be the team that made it the furthest, the most people make it to the individual phase, that definitely probably would have been best cased for the show. And this isn't on them. People got injured. They performed horribly as a team in every single day of the challenge. And then they were pointlessly targeted over and over. And a couple of we're not going to hand out awards later for best and worst strategy, but if we did, the last couple times that the Era 1 folks were thrown into elimination for no reason, when we have coming up in best quote later, CT saying, "I shit myself today." We're not the problem for any of these other teams. Is sums it all up. It was pointless that they were being targeted. They should have been everyone's ally and be like, well, you can just stay over there, guys. You're not doing so good, and it's nice to have you around. So just keep hanging out. So Era 1 getting decimated definitely didn't work out in the show's favor. Some things I would have changed. I understand the need to get rid of people fast early on for production purposes. I already said I love that they brought 40 people, and I completely understand that that is not sustainable operationally, cost-wise for them to have 40 people. And so it's like, yeah, we have 40 people here, but this is really a 32-person cast. We have a 40-person cast for 2 days, and then we will be to a 32-person cast, which we know how to manage. And even that we will dwindle as quickly as we can. So I get that. I get that need. I, again, appreciate that they brought 40 people, the whole thing. But the 8 eliminations to open was too many. That's too many. We didn't, it's just, there's nothing more to say. It's too many. So instead of 8 eliminations up top, something I would have changed is similar, but would change is instead of 8, do 4. Open with 4 eliminations. Every era has 1 man and 1 woman in the elimination. So there's 8 people total competing, 4 people going home initially, and then you can keep it either right when you go to the individual or at the end of the individual, one way or the other. You could have done a couple double eliminations and had 4 people instead of 2 go home in one of those episodes, or you did do the 1 purge in the middle where Nehemiah and Laurel went home. Maybe you make that 2 men and 2 women go home during that to make up one way or the other. The 8 just, in retrospect, both, it probably wouldn't have felt this way if I didn't feel like it just really took a lot of the wind out of the sails of the season early, when it was like, damn, Nerys is like Nerys is the new star from season 39. And like, there she goes. And like, we need Amanda here to talk this shit. Like, she is the perfect person on that Era 3 team that I think is going to be really dominant to keep things interesting and whatever. And we need her. And now she's gone. And, throughout the whole thing, I think we just lost a lot of people, and it was too much too early. So I understand why they had to do it, but I would have tried to break that up any way I could, of still getting, hey, day 1 man, 1 woman from each team is going to end up in this thing, and a bunch of people are going to go home. But I would have found a way to split that up in some way. Then the individual phase, they had to do it. It has to end up being an individual. I get it. I think the winner should have been safe. I think the whole house should have voted on the second elimination participant, still with the targets the same. Last place goes in, but I think it should have been the whole house, and not just the either male winner essentially on the female days or the female winner on the male days, picking the second person from the group of targets. I think it should have been a house vote. I think it's just the women controlling the men's game and the men controlling the women's game made for where, like, the guys couldn't target Jordan, and it just made for a lot of boring strategy stuff, because all the strongest women would want to work with the strongest men and all vice versa. And so it just, kind of took a lot of the drama out of the game itself, which is, a lot of the drama gets brought through the game itself these days. And so I think if they kept the targets just as it was, they kept the 2 winners, and you're safe, but you would just win the safety, the whole house votes, I think things would have been more interesting. Yes, there could have been a big alliance again, like there typically is, but I think this would have actually set up for there not to be, and there have been enough little factions, and I think things could have been interesting and would have been a little better. And then last thing I would have changed is just show us more. We heard throughout this season, this was the most vocal cast members have ever been. Half of them had a podcast or a Patreon or a YouTube, Instagram live after the show this season. We tried to catch as much of that content as we could. But we heard through all of those different things that of a lot of different hookups or fights or arguments or deals or backstabs, different things that happened that we didn't see. And when we watched 20, 90-minute episodes, to hear of so many arguments or deals that were broken or possible hookups and things. And yes, in the reunion, they touched on a couple of them. Cool. The reunion isn't even going to talk about on this. Shout out Maria, you do a great job. But I don't love the reunions, and I don't love how they do the reunions, and that could be a state of the reunions podcast or video for another day. But 90-minute episodes, and you don't show us seemingly the best of what you captured on camera. So show us more of that. And then finally, the things that just absolutely didn't work, and I wouldn't have just changed, I just wouldn't have done, I think were bad ideas and hurt the show in a big way. The final being 80% based on swimming ability is still insane to me, and I will never not think that is completely and utterly insane. The karma vote, I don't think was a good idea, and I don't think it led to any good outcomes either. And then finally, this is the thing I referenced earlier. The dailies were good. The design of the dailies themselves and everything was good. But they were driving really far to a lot of these dailies. There was a couple of them that were 2, 3, 4 hour drives each way. And the length that some of the dailies then took forever to film, because there was a lot of ones where people went individually or whatnot. And when you mix, hey, it's a 2-hour drive there, 2-hour drive back, and it's going to probably take us 7 hours to film the 14 of you each doing this individually and getting you up on the harness, this, that, and the other. Suddenly, your entire day of filming is just the daily challenge. And when you're not showing the bus content necessarily, we did get a couple on the bus scenes, so I did appreciate that. Throw that in the things I loved list. But when you have that big of a distance to the daily challenge, and then the dailies are that long, it means basically no house time to work with on those days or those couple of days. And I think that's something they should think about in the future of like, let's make these efficient, because the dailies, they matter, they move the game along, but that's not the stuff that makes for the good TV show, the stuff at the house. Whether it is about the game and the voting and everything, or it's not, the stuff at the house is what drives this show. And so let's think through, how can we make this efficient? That is one element of old school challenge that could be brought back, is like, hey, get on a bus. We're going 20 minutes down the road. You're all going to do this thing at one time that takes like 2 minutes, maybe, who knows? And then you're going to get on the bus and go back, and you're going to have been gone 2 hours, and the rest of your day is we're filming you doing stuff at the house. Get back to that. Now let's hand out some awards, which will allow us to talk about the best of the best from the season and a lot of things we liked about this season, quotes, moments, the whole thing. Let's start with the best quote, and then, of course, the Dan Renzi Confessional King or Queen Award of the season. Best quote. I have 7 nominees I wrote down here, and I will admit this is on me, and this is where I need your help. If you're watching on YouTube, definitely comments below. Spotify, I believe, allows you to leave comments now. Apple Podcasts, not as much. You can DM me, or you can pop over to the YouTube version and leave a comment there, something to that nature. I, throughout this season, continually did not take as detailed a notes as I usually do in a lot of the episodes, and so that's why we had a lackluster quote of the week nominees a lot of the weeks. That's on me. That wasn't on the cast. That was on me. I just didn't do a good job notating, which means this category is probably missing a couple actual real contenders. So you let me know. But these were my favorites of the season in chronological order here. Nominees. Episode 1, Aviv came in hot. Quote, I don't know. I may bring out some reunion boobies. If I'm already having this midlife crisis, why not take it to the next level? End quote. That was on what she would do if she would win the season. And it was a great callback to a season she was on where we witnessed some, or it was before the reunion boobies or after I forget when Casey got the reunion boobies, the original reunion boobies of Challenge history. I don't think the only ones in Challenge history though. But that was a great quote to start us off. Episode 3 then, Naya, quote, I'm absolutely going to make one or both of these men fall in love with me, because that's strategy, and if it keeps me safe in the game, then why not? End quote, in reference to Kylan and Josh and anyone else she was eyeing in the house at that time. Episode 4, CT, I referenced this earlier, quote, I shit myself yesterday. We are not the problem, end quote, when he's talking with Darrell, and I think Brad or Derek or all 3 of them are there. And it's after he's fallen, he's gone to the hospital, he comes back, and he's just like, why are they still targeting us? Why do they care? Like, we're clearly not the problem. And it just was a really good way to sum it up. Episode 5, Tina, quote, Bob and motherfucking weave, her and CT from the trailer from that episode. In that episode, she had 4 nominees, and so I just wrote down the shortest one into this, but you'll be hearing about Tina's name here in just a second. Episode 7, then Jordan, quote, I've never had a bachelor party, but let me tell you, I'm going to need the number for that stripper service. I will be repeating my services, end quote. And I believe that was maybe Carl and Dave's strip tease going on, or no, maybe it was Derek, as I forget which ego he had there with him on this season. I forget. There was a couple different times strippers broke out, but yeah, good quote nonetheless. And then speaking, different, man, you know what was difficult this season? Correctly typing Derek and Derek, the spelling, which one I was talking about at which time. We had to type their names a lot, both of them, and I definitely didn't go 100% in typing in my notes. But Derek K here, quote, Darrell is going to beat the calculator, and we're going to nickname him Darrell TI-82. And for those of us who grew up when calculators were the newest, best technology we had, and like the new calculator came out and it was crazy and wild, that quote really hit home. That was a really, really good callback by Derek K. And then episode 12, Kara, quote, Bananas really wants to be Peter Pan, but in reality, he's Tinkerbell. He needs attention or he'll die, and he is bratty as fuck when he doesn't get his way, end quote. And that one is both funny and fairly accurate and a dig at an enemy and sums up the game. It just all of it. It has everything you want in a great challenge quote. And that is why I am giving Kara the quote of the season award for that. But as for the Dan Renzi Confessional King or Queen of the season, that is going to Miss Tina. She wasn't there for, I don't even know, half the season, about half the season-ish was how long she was there. But doesn't matter. Okay. She crushed it in the confessional booth as expected. She also, part of this comes from, she was incredible in sharing Tina's thoughts on Twitter all season long and after the season. Has just been very, very vocal in that. So I might be mixing in some Tina's thoughts with her actual confessionals on the season. But Dan Renzi Award goes to Tina. Best moment then, and this is a light category this season. It just really is. And yet again, I'm probably missing a bunch of stuff here. But it just is a season without like a bunch of big time moments that I'm going to really look back on and remember. So let's go through some of the nominees. Episode 1, the whole opening, them coming out in the first daily challenge, like the water and the lights behind TJ, them coming out of the shipping containers, the whole thing, the bigness of it. It did feel monumental, big. It looked cool as hell. Everything about that was incredible. It might be it's not going to win best moment here, but it might be like the image I remember of this season the most is 40 people standing around TJ with the water and the lights and stuff behind him is a really incredible image. And maybe is like the image of the season, but it's not going to be the moment. Also in episode 1, Derek, Darrell, and CT. And again, I think Brad was there at some point, in or out. There's 2 different scenes of them in the beds trying to figure out who's going to go into the elimination. And that was just like the whole point. It was in episode 1, but was the culmination in the best moment we got of one of the things that they were really hoping for in putting you in these teams, and your teams having to decide someone that's up for elimination or going into elimination in the beginning, is these relationships at play and how hard it would be to pick someone, especially for Era 1. And so that moment of those 3, like real, actual lifelong friends at this point, having to decide like who's going to do this, who are we going to put in there, trying to find a cordial way to, put in a best friend, was really, really interesting and cool stuff. Episode 3, there was a toga party. It was short, but it was great while the moments that it lasted on our screen. I'm sure it was great for the many more moments that it lasted in real life. And just anytime there's a toga party, it gets nominated for best moment. Also, episode 3, Tony versus Avery. If you remember all the way back to that, like 4.5 months ago, it was great. I didn't totally love all of the commentary that was coming out of it and how it was, it was maybe didn't love that Tony we're bringing a lot of gender politics into it, when in that instance, a lot of instances where that should be talked about in the challenge house, but I didn't think that one was one. I thought that was just Tony doing a stupid move and being stubborn and it costing him the game. But regardless of that, it was a very interesting moment and showdown. And it obviously had a really cool way that it played out of like Tony was the one being dumb and stubborn and he ends up going home, and Avery was technically, I guess, being stubborn too. I guess they both had to be stubborn for that to happen, but was the one who probably should have been getting her way the whole time and then gets the elimination win. Very gratifying, the whole thing. And then next two nominees, episodes 4's elimination and episode 5's eliminations, which we will talk about in a moment when we hand out the award for best elimination. So we'll just skip those for now. And then episode 11 is the next nominee. Bananas going off in the bar. Flawless execution of a huge rant, raving, yelling at people, arguing with people over friendship, over alliances, over anything and everything you could think of, just making a big scene, making a big show. And at the same time, it both be really good television and really secretly under the radar good gameplay from him. And yes, it was very performative, but that's okay. That's fine. All of that was really, really great. And he had a couple of those this season. He really went for it and with the showy blow ups a couple of times. And I thought this one was definitely the most deserved and was the best one. And just everyone at the bar, mouths open. Tori going right back at him, Michelle getting into it, Jordan catching stray after stray, but like keeping his cool and keeping his calm over there. The whole thing, really, really great stuff. Episode 14, then final nominee here, or well, not final nominee. Episode 14, Carl and Dave, aka Tori and Kara, realizing that they should be best friends and doing the Carl and Dave thing and giving Michelle the birthday and all of that. Loved that. And then the very end, just the moments of the final that did stand out of, the couple, each person's kind of individual moment to have their win, to have their triumph. All of that was really good. Derek making it. Rachel, even if I don't agree with how it happens, becoming a two-time champ or three-time champ, three-time champ. Michelle doing as well as she did. Kylan at least getting that last little, get to thwart Bananas in the math thing. All of it, all the little moments that at least everyone kind of got a little bit of a win here or there throughout the final. All of those were the best moments. I'm giving the award to Bananas going off the bar in episode 11. I think that, it might say something about this season overall, that is the best moment, that the moment I would think is like kind of the more iconic of the seasons, but it's not in the bracket. It's not making the like best moments all time bracket. This season, I don't think has any moments to put up there. So again, the image of the season to me is the 40 people coming out, standing around TJ, the water, the lights, the whole thing looks cool. It's awesome. The opening daily challenge I thought was really great. That's the image of the season to me, the moment of the season, Bananas going off at the bar. Then we have the elimination of the season. And some of these are joint nominees. If they're same episode, same eliminations, were both really, really good. Episode 2, Theo beating Pauly in Hall Brawl. Obviously, we had the 8 eliminations. Some of them were good and competitive. Some of them were not. They were all games we love, of course. But Theo rocking Pauly's world, potentially giving Pauly back-to-back concussions within minutes of each other, which is horrific for his health. And I pray there will never be any fallout from that for Pauly down the road, but pretty memorable, pretty great. And I could have put in best moment, Pauly and Theo in the interrogation room, calling each other out, having a little standoff in episode 1 or 2, whichever one that was. Amazing stuff from them. Episode 4, Jenny and Derek beating Anissa and Horacio and Pick It Up. Obviously, this was completely controversial. This was the one that I should have added in the things I loved, and I still applaud production so much for giving the raw footage to Scott and Derek and to share with Horacio, and let Derek and Horacio watch it and, get an understanding after the fact and be able to then do a podcast about it together and kind of clear the air over the whole thing. But it was a really cool, interesting game. Board malfunction be damned. And it was 2 really close battles. And it was, Jenny goes on to win this season, and she was moments away from losing to Anissa in that. And, Derek knocks out the new next best thing in Era 4 and Horacio. So big, memorable stuff from episode 4. Then episode 5, back-to-back episodes with huge eliminations. Tina and Nehemiah beating Emily and CT in Getting Hammered. Obviously, huge upsets. Again, it made more sense once we know the games, but if you would have just told us, or the people that had the spoilers out there that just would have seen Once Upon a Time, like, wait a minute, Tina just beat Emily and Nehemiah beat CT at the same time and eliminated, like, what the hell just happened? Emily and CT are gone. Those were amazing eliminations, of course. And then episode 16, Derek beating Corey in closing time. I thought this was one of the coolest designs of an elimination all season. Yes, it was a little bit kind of pulled from what they had done on not just on Ride or Dies. It was also in USA 2, Australia. Those seasons, there was kind of an element similar to this, but Derek getting the win, Corey's big elimination run, ending that late in the season, Derek making the final from it, all of that was really, really good. But the elimination of the season, I am going with episode 4. I'm giving a joint award. Jenny beating Anissa, Derek beating Horacio. Pick It Up was the elimination of the year. And now for our MVP. This works the same every time we give it out. We talk a couple folks if there was any gone too soons, like we're off to good MVP-esque starts of the season, but then they got sent home way too early. It's just like, you can't give MVP of the season to someone that was there for 4 episodes out of 20. And so gone too soon category, I've got 3 people: Amanda, Tina, and Derek. I really do think Amanda had a pivotal role to play this season in how the cast was formed and the teams and everything else, and would have been amazing if she was there for more than the first 2 episodes. I think Tina was fantastic the entire time she was there, but again, about half the season, not quite enough to really be in contention here, but was fantastic all the way through. Same with Derek. I thought he was just incredible, only there, for about half-ish of the season. And so gone too soon, but really great performances, even in limited runs for Amanda, Tina, and Derek. Then got our honorable mention and then our top 3. And so these honorable mentions, really I felt pretty good about who I picked as the winner. And I felt pretty good about who I put as second place, runner-up. Third place was a tougher call and really did kind of come down to 5 people for me. So my honorable mentions here, you could probably put any of them in third, and I would be okay with it. I wouldn't argue too much with you. My bias will definitely show here when I get to who is in third. But honorable mention, Jordan, Cara, Corey, and Rachel. So Jordan, and again, MVP, most valuable to the season. I should have said this at the start, but we'll say it now. It is not, obviously, Jordan and Jenny and Rachel won the season. So they had the best season. They won. That's not what MVP is. It's not even the best player, even if I was like, whoever, someone, this is a bad example because I think the people that played the best all season did end up winning in Jordan and Rachel's case, and mostly Jenny's case too. But it isn't even like who played the best game, even if they didn't ultimately win. It's not that. It's most valuable to the television show of the challenge for the entire season. So yes, you do need to do well in the game because you need to get at least 3/4 of the way through the season to really be eligible for this, but it's who carried the show, who carried the storylines, who the best way to think of it is if you removed them from the season, the season would take the biggest hit, entertainment and enjoyment wise. Okay. That's what the MVP kind of is there in a nutshell. So yes, Jordan won the whole season, was pretty entertaining, had good confessionals, was interesting, was kind of in the mix, but was doing the whole, I'm in the background, I'm chilling, I'm floating a lot. And so, it wasn't the strongest Jordan season we've ever had, but it was still good. Honorable mention. Cara, similar. There's good positive storylines there. There is, of course, the big blow up that we didn't even mention with Laurel as like a moment. I'm just so over that. So it wasn't even like moments of the season or anything like that. But a very good season, some good entertainment, some new friendships, some things, all good. Corey really became a focus. How many times he was targeted, 3, 4 eliminations, whatever. He went 3 and 1, so 4 eliminations that he did. Kind of the swing vote that never got to swing anything, just ended up being the sacrificial lamb of era 3, and all of that. I thought he was just very prevalent. His story was kind of front and center a lot throughout the season. And then Rachel was the one that really is the big argument of like, I think most people maybe would put her in third on this list. Obviously, fantastic season. Rolling with, being the last of era 1, being a 1-woman team for a moment there and winning that daily challenge, winning a couple eliminations, and ultimately, ended up tying for the win of the season. Karma vote or no karma vote, it is what it is. And having an amazing season, playing the best politics and strategy of the season, and having some good moments in there, all of that. And so if any of those 4, Jordan, Cara, Corey, Rachel, especially Rachel, you wanted to say should be third place here, fine. I gave third place to Jenny. I think she had great confessionals. I think she had some really funny in the moment quotes. I didn't put these in best quote, but there was one in particular where the Bananas Angels were like hanging out, trying to talk about how to get rid of someone. And she just casually was like, what if someone wound up dead in the middle of the night or drowned in the middle of the night kind of comment. That was really, really funny. I thought she was great all season long. I thought she was the center of attention a lot, being targeted over and over and over the way she was, and then winning some of the other dailies, winning some eliminations, being a part of Bananas Angels, was just really kind of front and center. And then, of course, dominates and wins the final and everything else. And this might just be me and my bias showing up again of how awful I feel for her on Total Madness not becoming this huge star of the show the way she should have been if they didn't edit that season like crazy. So it's her, Rachel, though. I really do think for the spot. So I'm giving Jenny third. Then second place. I feel strong about it, but I also know obviously that there's a strong bias here for me on this one as well. But I do feel like second and first would like this is kind of how it had to be. I think Michelle is the runner-up MVP of this season. I think we had a romance with Devin that's going strong after the show and everything, but was definitely a storyline of the season that then led to multiple confrontations with Bananas. She was the one that kind of kicked off the her fight that turned into the Cara Laurel fight that turned into the Cara Michelle friendship off the show, on the show and now off the show. It was a big, storyline through it. She had the huge meltdown in episode 10 in the Daily Challenge where a puzzle stumped her for once and heat stroke, and she was just totally out of it. And her and Olivia had to have the moment and got back up, and that kind of gave the underdog storyline. And the whole time we had the does she think she's good enough? Does she think she's worthy of as good a competitor? The whole thing. 3 elimination wins, great confessionals all the way through. Ultimately does really well in the final. Without the karma vote, really got second on this season in maybe the most stacked women's cast we've ever had. And she ends up getting second place. Pretty incredible stuff from Michelle all around. And I really do think, as far as the entertainment the show's considered and the MVP's considered, she is the runner up for me in the winner. And he's a deserving winner. It's not his first win. I don't know what, I haven't given an MVP for every single season, first 20 and last 5 or 6. But it's definitely at least his second, if not his third. If I were to grade out every season, probably got 4 or 5 even potentially in there. Ultimately, he's probably got the most MVPs, same as he has the most championships. That is Johnny DiVinanzio. Johnny Bananas. Bananas is the MVP of this season, I think. And it's deserved. I think he is kind of unequivocally was the MVP of this season. And I do think it does speak a little bit to the problems of it feeling a little stale after the fact of that Bananas so easily was the MVP of this, and it wasn't some amazing, but wouldn't be in his top 5 most interesting or entertaining seasons by any means, but it was still the best here. He started the season by earning power and therefore putting him and Laurel front and center versus Cara and the rest of Era 2, right away to open the season. Spotlights on him and his relationships in the house and how that's going to go. He got himself out of elimination multiple times. The one in particular versus Corey, where, he loses, he would have probably lost to Corey it was the elimination Brad and Corey did, throwing the balls that Janae and Rachel, I think, were the women that did that round. In episode 6, he guilt trips Josh. Era 4 gets the pick between Brad and Bananas. They throw Brad in, not Bananas, mainly because he guilt trips Josh over the USA 2 vote to do him a favor, to do him a solid. It's ridiculous, but it's unbelievable performance and strategy from him and to pull it off. And it made no sense, but he pulled it off. He had multiple chamber performances from both sides of the table, from the winning side and from the losing side, the clipping the toenails, all of that. He had the big blow-ups, the moment of the season, we said, the big performance at the bar. The Angels Alliance was as big of a story as any throughout the season. And kind of everything in the season was pitched as there's 2 sides. There's Bananas Angels and everyone else. And, multiple big showy, yelly performances at the bar. He makes it to the final. He makes some good TV during the final, even right at the end when it's, the loss is locked up and he's sipping the coconut water all by his lonesome on the little island. All of it. He was the MVP. He had the most episode MVP awards and was also in the top 5 episode MVP, I think the most times. I think maybe Michelle was in the top 5 more times than him, but Bananas had the most wins and second places there. And so pretty cut and dry decision for me. Johnny Bananas is for I don't know what time, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, something like that, but certainly not his first. He is the MVP of Battle of the Eras. And now finally, we will do the season grade for Battle of the Eras. We always do female cast, male cast, sport grade, show grade, and then the overall grade, which is not a composite of those other four. Those other four are just some guideposts to help us come up with what we think the overall grade for the show is. And the casting grades are usually the worst indicators of what the overall grade is, because there's been a lot of seasons that with poor casting grades that have amazing overall grades and great casting grades that have lower overall grades. So they're kind of almost its own separate thing. Anyways, female cast gets an A minus. It's not the best female cast ever just because there's 20 of them. And so it's not like the percentage of like Hall of Famer heavy hitters isn't quite there that a couple seasons of the past have had, but it's in the A category. It's an A minus. It's very strong. It's obviously competition wise is a slightly different thing, but the most competitive female cast we've ever had for sure. But it's the best grade the show's getting of any kind. Male cast, more of a B. There was some more people missing on the male side for what would have made this great. And of the 20, again, a little bit more of a mix of surefire Hall of Famers and good cast members, all good cast members, no duds in a season like this across the board, which is why those grades aren't going to go any lower than the A minus and B that they get. But could have definitely been a little higher. And again, female cast, really, really great. A minus there. B for the male cast. The sport grade, I struggled with all the rest of these. The sport grade, I gave a B. Give a B. Really solid dailies, really solid eliminations. Again, really enjoyed them across the board, which you would think would lead to a really good sport grade, a better than B. B plus, A minus, something like that is where if I was just doing dailies and elims. But the final part of the sport grade is then the final, and I still can't comprehend or endorse that final in any way. I just can't. I'm not over it, and I'm not going to get over it. I just don't like it. I think I'm glad that it was like well oiled as far as how it was run. And there was no major mistakes in that part, but I just think the design was confusing and I can't comprehend it. And so that drops the sport grade down to a B. I almost went down to a B minus and maybe even could have there. And then the show grade, the most important of all the grades as far as impact on the overall, is C. I just really won't remember much about this season. I just won't. It had these huge expectations, and it just really didn't live up to a lot of them. Again, the opening is so cool. Season 40, design's amazing. The hope of it all is amazing. And then it just kind of is like, especially for 20 episodes, there just wasn't a ton there. It's still fine. So it's not failing this, in any way. It's not bad in any way, but it's fine. And so the show grade's a C, sport grade's a B, the male cast B, the female cast A minus. And again, not a composite because the composite of that would be like a B minus or B. But the overall grade, when looking back at all the other seasons and where I've graded them, kind of thinking about where this one would fit in, which ones seemed like the ones that would make the most sense being paired up with, I was really torn between a B minus and a C plus. And I ended up going with a C plus overall. And again, everyone needs to remember, I'm a very harsh grader. If this is your first time ever listening to one of these, seeing one of these, I guess I should give you the full spiel. Anything in the A tier is all-time stuff. That is reserved for the best of the best. Even A minus is best of the best. Okay. There's been maybe no A plus seasons in the history of the show. 3 or 4 A's, maybe 1, maybe 2 A pluses that could be argued. If you had to give someone an A plus, they would rise to the top, and a handful of A minuses. Not a ton of seasons in the all-time range. Anywhere in the B range is a good season, moved the show forward in some way, shape, or form. Even a B minus season is good. And then in the C range is fine. C's and C pluses is like some stuff was bad, some stuff was good. C's and below, you could argue maybe the show almost even moved backwards here more than it moved forwards, but they could be really high variance seasons in the C's. They could just be kind of whatever seasons. Again, any season of the challenge, the worst challenge season, I like watching. I would rewatch the worst ones that I've Battle of the Sexes is what I currently have labeled as the worst season. And it is very interesting and entertaining to watch. Okay. So that's my spiel on grading. C plus though, it's fine. It's good even for stretches. As I said before, I'm not always into like the actual competition itself that much. And in this one, I was really interested in how some people would fare in the actual competition, especially on the women's side down the stretch. but it got a bit boring at times. We didn't see a lot of the good stuff. The men's side of the competition, it became clear at some point, like Jordan's just going to win this. So that, was kind of made for a little bit of boring. And again, the expectations definitely hurt it, but it is season 40. It's this big monumental thing. All these people are there at the beginning, and then suddenly it's just not that amazing after it felt like it could be. And it does. The reason I was between a B- and a C+ is there were some other B- seasons out there that it kind of felt similar to. The Duel 2 came to mind, not just because Rachel also won on that season, but the Duel 2 is a season I love, I adore. It's like really high on my favorite seasons, but it's more of a casual hang. The competition is high. The show grade is lower. It's not that dramatic. It's not that messy. It's pretty straightforward. And it's kind of just a fun hang, chill, and you're interested in the competition of it all. So this was like a little bit like, it kind of feels like it should be maybe around there. I forget, it's one of those seasons were in that range. But then I was looking at what was in the C+ range, and I was like, this is where this belongs. I don't know where, if I actually ranked all these C+ seasons, but it feels like it's supposed to be in this tier with some seasons that are really high variance, that have some crazy good stuff about it and some crazy awful stuff about it, or a bunch of just seasons that were like, that was fine. There were some good things to say about that season, but there just wasn't the over-the-top memorable moments, that one or two unreal storylines that you're still talking about years later, that carries into many seasons into the future, anything of that like really elevates something to like in the B tier or even into the A tier. So it's a C+. And yeah, ultimately for the big 40th season of the show, Battle of the Heirs is a C+ what you want? No, it's not. But I still had a good time, and I'm still happy to be talking about it 5 weeks now since the premiere launch special or whatever of the show. It's just insane. Half a year ago. And yeah, that's that. So maybe that grade will change in the future. As always, these are kind of up in flux, but they're only up in flux to me. I am the keeper of the history books here. I am the historian of the show. What I say goes. And so for the time being, in the history books, this is officially getting a C+. And there's nothing any of you can do about it. That's just how it goes. It's TJ's final. They're my history books. And so it is. So thank you for being here. I know this was an incredibly long episode, but a lot to cover, and we covered it all. And once and for all, we will put Battle of the Eras to the side in the books, and we'll be back on Wednesday night with All Stars 5 episode 2 coverage and beyond. We'll be doing All Stars 5 coverage. We will be doing very soon. Still coming is, we never ended up doing it during Battle of the Eras, but for some more Eras-esque type of coverage, we will be doing the best men and the best women of each of the 4 eras. Again, I have different eras of the show, but now, according to the show, each 10 seasons is an era. So of each era of the show, best men, best women, top 5, top 10, one of the two, separated out. Each one of those will be its own little individual thing that will be coming sometime in the relatively near future. So you got that to look forward to. One last time, subscribe, follow, rate, review, all that good stuff. It really helps. I love you. I appreciate you. I will talk to you. Hopefully, I will be talking to you again on Wednesday night. If you're not watching All Stars 5, get on it. Find a way to watch it. Get MTV, whatever you got to do. Watch it. It's amazing. It's going to be amazing. I believe wholeheartedly it is going to be the best season since War of the Worlds 2. One episode in, it is living up to that expectation. See ya.